Former CNN White House correspondent Jim Acosta aired a deeply unsettling interview on his YouTube channel just this week. Before you take a look at this clip, quick setup. This is Joaquin Oliver, who died in the heinous Parkland, Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School tragedy, mass shooting in Parkland, Florida. This is a video this is an AI that Oliver's parents gave Acosta permission to interview. They have since defended its use. They defended Acosta show's use of the AI and their own use of this AI from their son. So let's take a look at the video, and then we have a lot more to dive into on the other end.
Joaquin, I would like to know what your solution would be for gun violence.
Great question. I believe in a mix of stronger gun control laws, mental health support, and community engagement. We need to create safe spaces for conversations and connections, making sure everyone feels seen and heard. It's about building a culture of kindness and understanding.
It doesn't feel right. I think basically anybody watching that gets an unsettled, queasy feeling about what they just witnessed. I know you all know this because we talk about it all the time here on Undercurrents. Sometimes two people read the same news story and then walk away with completely different opinions. Well, have you ever wondered why? That's why I've started using ground news. It just cuts through the noise, the algorithmic traps, and the clickbait. If you care about facts over spin, and I know everyone here does, it's honestly a game changer. And that's because, let's just take a look at this example. I'm putting Hunter Biden, Andrew Callahan here into the ground news search function. You can see it was covered by 34 news outlets at the time that I recorded this. And as I scroll down, the coverage is wildly different from outlet to outlet, and you can instantly compare how left, center, and right-leaning sources are framing the same event. If you notice there's a difference in the coverage, you then also, because of ground news, have the reference point as to why the coverage might be different in headline A versus headline B. And maybe it's not even the ideological bias that explains it. Maybe it's also the independence of the news outlet. Maybe it's also the owner of the news outlet, which you can actually see in the ground news feature, which is really amazing. It's a one-stop shop for assessing news framing, for assessing bias. It's all right there. So if you are serious about staying informed, get 40% off Ground News's Vantage plan by clicking the link in my description or scanning this QR code. Don't just consume the news. Understand the news. That is one of the hardest things to do right now, and ground news helps you see what you're missing. I'm reading a little bit from Variety here. They say the interactive AI was created by Oliver's parents, who granted Acosta the first interview with the recreated version of their son on what would have been his 25th birthday. Oliver was one of 17 people killed in the mass shooting at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. Acosta asked about gun violence, obviously, and the AI avatar responded, I believe in a mix of stronger gun control laws, mental health support, and community engagement. And then, though my life was cut short, I want to keep inspiring others to connect and advocate for change. They talked a little bit about basketball. They talked about movies, and Acosta turned to Oliver's father, Manuel, after the interview and said, quote, I'm kind of speechless as to the technology there. It was so insightful. I really felt like I was speaking with Joaquin. It's just a beautiful thing. So maybe I'm wildly off base here, and my own interpretation is different than the broader public's. Maybe the broader public is more mixed on this than I realize. I just don't think many people watch that and think, what a beautiful thing. What's difficult about it is that it's a simulation, right? I mean, it seems so almost, I mean, obviously there are possibilities about where this goes in the future, and we'll talk about that in a second, which adds to the queasy feeling and the unsettled feeling. But I also think it just, seeing a simulation of a real human being that's not speaking fluidly, that's not fully human, and has such robotic tendencies, though of course that will change, but has the sort of characteristics that you associate with sort of science fiction robots, because they're clearly not fully human. They're not quite human. It's a derivative of a real human being, their image, their voice, but it's not quite human. And as beautiful as it may be that the parents are finding solace, it seems like a very troubling way for them to find solace. But let's hear from the parents and get their perspective on this. Obviously, they have much more important perspective on this than I do, even if I disagree with them. Manuel said that bringing AI Joaquin to life would create more impact. He said, I understand that this is AI. I don't want anyone to think that I am in some way trying to bring my son back. Sadly, I can't, right? I wish I could. However, the technology is out there. Variety reports Manuel said they created the AI in part so that he and his wife, Patricia, could hear their son's voice again. And that is so fully understandable. The temptation to try to resurrect just people's voices or to take emails and text messages and feed them into an AI so that an AI can converse with you, if not in the sonic voice of a departed loved one, even just in the digital correspondence with their voice. The temptation to indulge in these new technologies is going to mount, and I don't think anyone right now is confident that that human nature can overcome the power of those temptations. And we'll get into that more in just a moment. A lot of people don't think we should have to overcome the power of those temptations. So more from Manuel. Patricia will spend hours asking questions, he said. Like any other mother, she loves to hear Joaquin saying, I love you, mommy. Now Joaquin is going to start having followers. He's going to start uploading videos. This is just the beginning. And then after people criticized this, he said, quote, I like to remember my son, Manuel, Manuel Oliver, the father said, I like to remember my son not as the victim from Parkland, but as the 17-year-old kid that is becoming an icon. And then posted a video saying, this is Manuel Oliver. I'm Joaquin Oliver's father. Today he should be turning 25 years old, and my wife Patricia and myself, we asked our friend Jim Acosta to have an interview with our son, because now thanks to AI we can bring him back. It was our idea, it was our plan, and it's still our plan. We feel that Joaquin has a lot of things to say, and as long as we have an option that allows us to bring that to you and to everyone, we will use it. So stop blaming people about where he's coming from or blaming Jim about what he was able to do. If the problem you have is with the AI, then you have the wrong problem. The real problem is that my son was shot 8 years ago. So if you believe that is not the problem, you are part of the problem. This is, with due respect to Mr. Oliver, a completely false dichotomy. You can, of course, believe that the tragedy in Parkland is a much, much bigger problem than an AI version of his son joining Jim Acosta's YouTube show. But also think that an AI version of his son joining Jim Acosta's YouTube show is a problem as well. So two of these things, these are not mutually exclusive. These things can both be true at the same time. And zeroing in on the statement, when Mr. Oliver says that Joaquin should be turning 25 years old today, think of the implications of that. Once you're an adult, you're over the age of 18, which tragically Joaquin didn't get to make it to his adulthood. So that means he is now frozen in amber, essentially, as the property of his parents in this case. And basically anyone in the world could do this. Anyone in the world can take existing pieces of footage or pictures or voice recordings of Joaquin and put this to use in different. Maybe someone who's anti-gun control does this with Joaquin, and that's not, obviously, I'm not saying that's the same thing as his own parents doing it, but people are adults and people grow into adulthood, and after the age of 18, your parents don't have legal control over you. And so now we're in a circumstance, totally uncharted territory, where Joaquin Oliver's parents, are with the sort of authority that comes with being his parents, putting literal words in his mouth, and broadcasting them to the world without any consent from a 25-year-old version of Joaquin. And it's just not something we've ever really had to think deeply about before. But the implications of it, I mean, they're strange. And that's what's so tragic about one of the many things that's so tragic about Joaquin, who I believe went by Guac, having his life cut short so violently, is that we don't know. And his parents, as they mourn, they say his life was cut short. They never have the opportunity to know what he would have been like, truly been like, at the age of 25. So they're letting an algorithm show that to them. And that feels like, it feels like twisting the knife in the long term. And we don't know. I mean, God bless them. God bless them. I can't imagine. None of us can really imagine what we would do and how we would cope in the circumstances that they find themselves in. And that's why I think some of this technology is so scary, because it is emotionally seductive in ways that play on our deepest desires. And I think just with, like listening to how his mom questions the AI back and forth, and, you can read stories of people doing that with AI chatbots. You can understand how easy it would be to fall into that. But it's not real. It's a simulation. It may be a sort of Band-Aid on a wound, but to me it doesn't seem like it's a helpful way to deal with what is the most painful thing about losing a loved one, and that is the finality of it. And to emotionally cope with the finality of it, with the tragedy of never hearing a person's voice again, or seeing them speak again, or seeing them alive and fully human, that finality is what we are to deal with as human beings in this world. It's the one thing we all have in common is mortality. We will all die, and that means death is a part of life that we all have to grow accustomed to. And this feels like a way to sort of further divorce ourselves from those realities. And there's some technologies that they help us with the biological reality, or the troubles that come with the challenges that come with the biological reality of, for example, having to hunt our own meat, right? We aren't all out there slaying cattle day in and day out for our burgers. We aren't all out there harvesting our own produce every day or processing it. Like, there are technologies that have changed the way that we hunt and gather. And some of that has been amazing. Like, it's, been incredible for the health of the world in terms of like starvation. Then there are other health effects that might not be so good as we are dealing with now, because a lot of this happened so quickly over the last couple of 100 years. I mean, some of it within the last 100 years. I mean, think of how much of modern medicine is just a product of purely the last century. Think about nuclear technology. Some of this stuff is so new in the scope of human existence. It is literally the blink of an eye that we have had the ability to nuke another country at the push of a button. And we act as though these technologies have been with us for, a long time, because it's long for our short lifetimes. Although I would say with nuclear technology, there are people alive who predate it. And so, it's not completely that old, but it feels old to us because our lives are so short, even though the life of humanity is much, much longer. So it's just very easy to fall into these traps. And I think, ultimately we are healthier for confronting the pain of our own mortality. Obviously I'm a Christian, so that's a part of my belief, but I don't think you actually even have to be to understand that confronting the full truth of human mortality and the pains that come with it and the tragedy that comes with it, as these parents and this community were confronted with so brutally and violently back in 2017 or 2018 in Parkland, you can understand that the depths of that anguish make it really tempting to turn to simulations, to turn to something that feels almost real. And that can be a sort of balm. But balms are not all long-term healing solutions. They can treat a problem, but they don't cure a problem always. And this to me feels like a balm that makes it harder in the long term to cope with the brutal but universal reality of mortality. So a really sad situation here. I think it's interesting of Acosta, who seems to be friends. The parents say that he's a friend, to bring this onto his show. I think it's clarifying to see how far short the AI simulation falls of truly reflecting somebody's humanity. And again, God bless the Oliver family. And it's very understandable why they find comfort in this. But with some, complete distance from this wonderful young man who was violently murdered, Joaquin, I think, without being his family and just sort of observing this as a member of the public, it does feel like it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch. And I wonder if it's kind of a clarifying moment, the more that grieving people are resorting to these types of simulations. I wonder actually if that kind of clarifies and brings us to a point where we realize that this falls short, that this is not fully human, that the future implications of what could be done with the humanity, the remnants of humanity that we will all leave in the digital age, virtually all of us, after we pass, the sort of breadcrumbs of our humanity, the text messages, the emails, the social media posts, the volume of selfies, pictures, videos of us while we were alive, it's going to be incredibly easy for those to be stitched back and together and harnessed in ways that are not reflective fully of what you would do or what you would say, even if they're statistically probably accurate, more and more accurate as we get into the future as to how you would react. Human beings are not algorithms. We're not robots. And at the end of the day, this is a simulation. It is based on probability. It's based on machine learning, and it's going to get really convincing really quickly. But I think some of these hard to watch examples early on might be clarifying for us in the moment. Sad story today, but a fascinating one. So thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it. You can subscribe to the full version of the show over at undercurrents.tv, undercurrents.tv. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. We'll be back here soon with more.